They claim that change is gradual, slow, and occurs in little imperceptible steps. That is only half the truth, as there are instances in which a single decision is all that is required. Not 10, not 100, not in the future. Just a moment when you pause and make a new decision. Additionally, it doesn't appear strong from the outside at that particular moment. There were no fireworks, no cheers, and no background dramatic music. Just quiet, a silent battle between two voices in your head. The other one doesn't yell, "Stay where you are. It's safer here. Don't risk it. What if you fail?" It doesn't plead. It only poses one query: what if you don't? You make a decision in that fleeting moment. You either take a step that feels strange, uneasy, or even frightening, or you tread the same route you've taken 1,000 times. The decision is that step. And this is what no one tells you. Clears throat. The choice it's kelt per graintriniets when frothic. People believe that success transforms people's life. No, choices do. The decision is the point at which everything changes, since success is merely a delayed outcome. Consider it. All of your unpleasant emotions, including fear, doubt, rage, and regret, don't just happen. They create patterns. You have the same thoughts when you wake up. You respond in the same manner. You repeat the same narrative to yourself. "I'm not ready. I can't do this. This is just who I am." These thoughts gradually come to pass. You never questioned them, not because they are true, until you do, that is. The pattern is broken by you. Perhaps it's tiny. You talk while you're normally silent. When you typically give up, you try. When your natural tendency is to run, you remain motionless. It appears unimportant from the outside. It's pandemoniums on the inside, though. Because your former self, who was based on uncertainty and fear, is unsure about how to respond. The script was broken by you. Additionally, once the script is broken, it can no longer control you in the same manner. That is the true power of a single choice. It affects more than simply your actions. It transforms the person you are becoming. Let's be truthful. Once you make a decision, negative emotions don't go away. They return time and time again. They put you to the test. The majority of people lose when they mutter, "That decision didn't mean anything. You're still the same. Go back to what's familiar." They believe that a single choice should immediately resolve all issues. They give up when it doesn't. That's the trap, though. The choice is not magical. It's a door. Additionally, you don't enter comfort when you pass through it. You encounter resistance, because genuine growth always feels like something is shattering. Indeed, it is. Old beliefs, old behaviors, and old versions of yourself don't go away lightly. They quarrel. They drag you back into the same patterns, feelings, and justifications. However, things are different now. You've witnessed the opposite. Even for a few moments, you have experienced what it's like to make a different decision. It's dangerous, that memory. You can't act as though you don't have a choice once you recognize that you do. You hesitate the next time dread strikes. It's not because you're weak, but rather because you know. The design is familiar to you, and that awareness offers you control, something you didn't have previously. Not having total emotional control. Nobody possesses that. But be in charge of how you react, and that's where everything shifts. To proceed, you don't have to be fearless. Despite your dread, you must make a decision. Not every unpleasant idea has to be silenced. All you have to do is seek ways following in their instructions. That's all. One choice at a time. Real decisions, not flawless or assured. The uncomfortable kind. The kind that causes your heart to race. The ones who make you leave the version of yourself you've been trapped in. In actuality, most people steer clear of this. Your current life is a reflection of the choices you made in the past, not of your goals or potential. Your choices, your future is waiting for the next one if that is the case, not the following year, not when it's in this instant, right now. You only need to make one choice to stop everything that has been preventing you from moving forward. You only need to make one choice to dispel your pessimistic beliefs. You only need to make one choice to transform into someone you wouldn't recognize in the past. Indeed, it is uncomfortable. It's meant to be. Patterns exist in comfort. Nothing changes, and bad emotions intensify because they are never questioned. However, the instant you deviate even a little from that truth, a fracture is created, and something fresh starts to emerge through that fissure. Assurance, not the phony, boisterous sort, the reserved type, the kind that says, "I've done this before, I can do it again." And that's clears throat, how it develops, moment by moment, decision by decision, until one day you look back and notice something odd. The things that once held you in check are no longer the fear, but the doubt is still there. However, you are in charge, not them. All because you made a single choice at some point, a tiny, very imperceptible movement that no one else could understand. However, it disrupted the strategy designed to keep you confined. Additionally, you are no longer responding, you're making a decision. And that's where the actual transformation starts. There is no tranquility in your head. It was never the case. It's a combat zone. Not the kind with visible commotion and noise, but something more subdued and perilous, due to the fact that this war takes place in silence. Nobody hears it. Nobody notices it. However, you experience it on a daily basis. Before the outside world has a chance to talk to you, it begins as soon as you wake up. Your thoughts have already done so. A tiny, nearly innocuous thought slips in. You're tired. You can't handle today. What's the point? The conflict then starts. You see, the majority of individuals believe that the world, other people, and uncontrollable situations are the source of their troubles. However, the true battle is on the inside, because the same circumstance that destroys one individual also creates another. The scenario is not the difference, it's the mind. Your mind has the potential to be both your most versatile adversary. The surprise is that it picks up knowledge from you. Your mind recalls every time you steer clear of something out of fear. It logs each time you succumb to doubt. It believes you each time you tell yourself, "I can't." It's following your lead, not because it's against you. The battleground is shaped in this way. Repetition is the key, not overnight. Thought by thought, reaction via reaction, until the day comes when you no longer even question it. The voice of negativity becomes accustomed and ease. Its ease seems to be you quit fighting, which is the worst part. You're not good enough, you always mess things up, you'll never change. You agree to it, you refer to it as reality. It's not reality though, it's conditioning. Every time you decide to think the worst of yourself, a pattern is created. It's also possible to break patterns, but not by accident, waiting for inspiration or hoping for a miraculous improvement. Passivity is not rewarded on this battlefield. It rewards consciousness, because you establish distance as soon as you become aware of your thoughts. It's not you, that voice in your head. You've been listening to it for far too long, and everything changes when you see that. Now, you don't follow your negative thoughts right away. You doubt it. Is this actually true? Or is this just what I've always believed? The idea abruptly becomes less compelling. Not everything, but enough to offer you an option. That is the pivotal moment in this conflict. Not everything, but enough to have to. Not when the thoughts go away, but rather when you cease using them as directives. Because they have been just that, haven't they? Directives. You did as they said, don't try. Stay quiet. Give up. You didn't know you had the power to refuse, not because you were weak. However, you have the ability to hear a thought right now and decide not to act upon it. It sounds easy. It's not. Due to the resistance of your intellect, it will get more forceful, louder, and compelling. It will go into your past and serve as a reminder of all of your mistakes, setbacks, and disappointments. For a brief while, you will want to believe it when it says, "See, this is who you are," due to its familiarity, because fighting for anything different is more difficult than staying the same. However, that is an illusion. Eliminating negative ideas is not the goal of this fight. It's about not giving in to them. You don't have to prevail in every conflict. All you have to do is remain inside. Take each moment as it comes, one choice at a time. Despite your trepidation, you continue to move. Despite your doubts, take action. You want to give up, but hold on a bit longer. Battles are won in this manner. Small, persistent resistance rather than a single, huge victory. And gradually, something begins to shift. The voice that used to dominate you begins to wane. You stopped feeding it, not because it's gone, you are no longer, and a new voice starts to emerge in that area. Initially quiet, unsure, clears throat, yet genuine. Unlike the negative one, it doesn't scream. You are neither degraded or insulted by it. It simply serves as a reminder that you have choices, that you're not trapped, that your worst thoughts do not define who you are, and that voice becomes stronger the more you hear it. Eventually, the battlefield will no yield a set the same. It will remain. There are still flashes of terror and periods of uncertainty. You're not overwhelmed now, though, you know. You are aware of the current situation, and you resist being drawn into it. Control is that. Power over what you do with your thoughts, not control over every idea. And everything is altered by that, because your life begins to take a different turn when fear no longer dictates what you do. You take risks that you used to stay away from. When you used to remain silent, you now talk. When you used to quit, you tried. The fear no longer makes decisions for you, not because it vanished. That's what winning this battle entails. Freedom, not flawlessness or unwavering assurance. The ability to think, feel, and still make your own decisions. Therefore, don't panic the next time your thoughts turn against you, because they will. Avoid running. Just keep your location in mind. You're in combat. You also know how to fight for the first time. There is a voice of the fox, persistent yet not boisterous or dramatic. It doesn't knock courteously. It doesn't wait until the appropriate moment. It appears when there's a problem, and most people's initial response is to turn it off, disregard it, divert their attention from it, run as quickly as you can away from it, because suffering seems to be a verdict. The misconception is similar to a definitive choice that declares, this is it, this is who you are now, this is how things will always be. Pain is not a punishment, it's a signal, a message. Something is attempting to capture your interest rather than conclude your narrative. Consider it. You don't refer to your body's discomfort as weakness. You don't call it a failure. You know it's a warning. Something has to be taken care of. There must be a change. There is an issue that has to be resolved. However you handle emotional suffering, fear, regret, loneliness, and disappointment differently. You transform it into your identity. I'm broken. I'll never recover. This is just how my life is. Suddenly, a transient signal turns into a permanent designation. You believed it, not because it had to. That's how powerful pain is. It's not what it is. Rather, it's what you interpret it to signify. Pain always contains information, you see. It indicates where something is important. It highlights instances in which expectations fell short of reality. It makes clear what you've been avoiding, ignoring, or clinging to excessively. However, most individuals fight it rather than listening to it. They attempt to turn it off right away. Distractions are a big part of it. Make noise to cover it. Swap it out for something that temporarily lessens their emotions. And it works for a time. The agony becomes insignificant. However, the signal never disappears, since it hasn't been comprehended. No one has responded to it. As a result, it returns sharper and more difficult to ignore. To be heard, not to punish you. Everything changes there. The instant you begin to view suffering as knowledge rather than an enemy. Uncomfortable information, difficult to comprehend, but helpful. Because every unpleasant emotion is a sign of something. Uncertainty is the source of fear. Regret points during instruction. Boundaries are the source of anger. Sadness is a sign of loss, or let's hang down through it with swipes. You remain stuck if you disregard their cues. It's not because suffering is keeping you there, but rather because you're not listening to what it's trying to teach you. However, something unexpected occurs when you confront it and sit with it without trying to flee right away. It shifts, not right away, not in a big way, but slowly. Because when pain is no longer misinterpreted, it becomes less potent. You begin posing various queries. Not, why is this happening to me? But, what is this showing me? Not, how do I get rid of this feeling? But, what needs to change because of it? These inquiries transform suffering into purpose. It turns into something that directs you rather than something that prevents you. Let's be clear though, that doesn't make things simple. It requires strength to feel suffering without fleeing it, because your natural tendency will still be to flee, to divert your time for it, to keep from thinking about it, should ignore it and act as though it doesn't exist, and occasionally you will. That's a component of it. However, awareness now makes a difference. It's not a sentence, as you are aware that it does not define your future. It's merely a signal that needs to be deciphered. You return to it repeatedly as a result, to learn not to suffer, and gradually you start reacting differently. You don't allow fear to totally stop. You don't allow regret to hold you back. You don't let rage dictate how you behave. You pay attention, but you don't just follow orders without question. The balance is that. Because you are not meant to be controlled by pain. It is intended to educate you, to draw attention to what is important, to identify areas that require improvement, to encourage you to do better, even if it doesn't seem like it right now. And eventually, you become aware of something. Things that were intolerable before become bearable. It's not because they vanish, but rather because you comprehend them. You've received the signal and responded to it, into transformation, into consciousness. At that point, pain begins to feel like a turning point rather than a dead end. Because each time you confront it rather than flee, you demonstrate something to yourself. Your emotions do not govern you. How you react to it shapes who you are, and everything is altered by that bite. Therefore, don't rush to silence pain the next time it appears. Don't categorize it as something bad that has to be removed right away. Take a moment, pay attention, for clarity, not for comfort. Because a message you've been avoiding is concealed within that discomfort. Furthermore, that message is not intended to break you. Its purpose is to lead you to a version of yourself that is only possible when you comprehend it. Anguish is not the end. It's a sign that something means to be altered, and you cease to be afraid of it once you see it that way. You begin utilizing it. At that point, it loses its ability to define you and transforms into direction, which is far more valuable. There is a reputation for chaos. The word conjures up images of devastation, loss, and everything collapsing at once. Something to stay away from, something under control, something to flee as quickly as you can, and that's precisely what they do the majority of the time. The point at which life no longer makes sense, the time when feelings become intense. The moment things don't go according to plan, they panic. They make an effort to fix it right away. Turn it off, get away from it, because chaos is perceived as dangerous. It's like losing control. However, most people are unaware of this. Destruction is only one aspect of chaos. It's a disruption. It occurs when the outdated structure becomes unsupportive, and it's not always a bad thing. Consider it. Stability, predictability, and repetition are the foundation of every pattern you've been trapped in, every negative cycle, and every limiting belief. Nothing poses a threat to them, so they endure. They are not shaken by anything. Nothing compels them to alter. However, chaos doesn't ask for permission. It arrives without warning and begins to break things. Plans go awry, expectations crumble, comfort vanishes, and everything seems to be going wrong and at that. But take a closer look. In reality, what's breaking? Is it your life or the delusion of control you believed you possessed? Because sometimes the things that break down aren't strong enough to keep you going. They were simply recognizable. Small habits that kept you safe, thoughts that were limited but felt true, routines that were comfortable but unchanging. Chaos disturbs everything. All of a sudden, the same patterns are no longer reliable. The outdated thing is The typical responses don't feel appropriate. The identity you've been clinging to begins to crumble, and the opportunity is there, not in the chaos per se, but in what it reveals. Because you don't ask many questions when things are stable, you go through the motions, you reiterate what you already know, you remain within the lines, but you have to pay attention when chaos strikes, you have to adjust. Without the security of routine, you are compelled to choose who you are. And that has a lot of power. Yes, it's uncomfortable, absolutely uncertain, but strong, because upheaval releases you from the confines of your former identity. You're not just someone who is cautious all the time, or the person who is constantly unsure, or the person who always gives up. Stability, predictability, and a regulated atmosphere were essential to those versions of you. If you take that away, you become something different entirely, and the majority of people even when it hinders them, they hurry to reconstruct the same old structure, routines, and mindset, since, at the very least, it's familiar. However, if you take a moment to think things through and fight the impulse to make everything right away, you begin to view things differently. Chaos makes room where the laws of the past don't apply, where you can make alternative decisions, and where you can recreate what you truly need rather than what you have. That's the secret power, not in managing disorder, but in utilizing it and allowing it to take away what is no longer useful to you. Allowing it to question your unquestioned beliefs. Allowing it to force you to make choices you would have preferred not to. Because, let's face it, when everything is going great, you don't really grow. You develop when things don't make sense, when you have to figure it out, when you're pushed past your comfort zone, and when the road vanishes and you have to forge your own. It's not your enemy. That's anarchy. It's an exam. It doesn't matter how well you manage everything. What matters is your willingness to change. Because you don't have the luxury of remaining the same when things are chaotic. Either you change or you revert to a situation that no longer suits you. Your power is in your ability to adapt. Not loud, not overt, but genuine. It's when you realize, I don't know exactly what's happening, but I'm not going back to who I was. It's when you give up trying to control everything and begin concentrating on your next course of action. It's when you understand that being uncertain doesn't imply you're lost. It indicates that you are no longer confined, and everything is altered by that, because no longer controls you once you can no longer fear. Rather than fleeing it, you begin to move through it. Where others only see issues, you begin to see opportunity. While everything else is still collapsing, you begin constructing something new. At that point, it becomes evident that chaos involves transformation in its most basic form, rather than merely destruction. Messy, erratic, uncomfortable, yet essential. Because without it, you would remain trapped in the same routines, the same way of thinking, and the same version of yourself that had no motivation to evolve. Therefore, don't rush to restore everything to how it was the next time it seems like things are falling apart. Ask yourself a different question. Why is this breaking? What does this reveal to me that I previously refused to see? Now that the old building is gone, what can I construct? Because a version of you that only emerges when everything else vanishes is concealed behind that chaos. Stronger, more conscious, less reliant on comfort, and much more threatening to the boundaries that used to define you. The pandemonium doesn't need to be within your control. All you have to do is quit squandering it. Utilize it, mold it, and allow it to compel you to do something you wouldn't have done in a peaceful situation. Because sometimes you become something more at the same moment that everything breaks. They believe they understood you. Every behavior is outlined, every response is anticipated, and every weakness is taken into consideration. You believe the same things, create the same justifications, wake up at the same time, and hesitate at the same times. It resembles an already solved game and is nearly mechanical. You are also not a threat in that system. You're contained because nothing changes as long as you stick to the pattern. Not your outcomes, not your attitude, nor your place in the world. Everything remains precisely where it should be. That's how the strategy works. Repetition and the silent agreement you formed with your own boundaries are more effective than coercion. I don't do that. I'm not that type of person. This is just how I am. These seemingly innocuous words function as barriers. They confine you to a predetermined, measured, and defined version of yourself. Here's the unsettling reality. You won't ever surprise anyone if you remain in that version. Not the outside world, not your situation, not even yourself. Because you're moving precisely as everyone anticipates. Then something changes though. Inside, not outside. A moment when you stop and look for the pattern. Pay close attention to it. The same reluctance, the same withdrawal, the same money carrot, and you don't follow it for the first time. You hesitate, but not in the same manner. Not the sort that draws you back, but the kind that makes room and separates the action from the idea. You discover something hazardous within that gap. You have choices. The following move is not predetermined. All you've done is repeat it, and everything starts to shift with that understanding, since you are no longer automatic. Predictability is broken by awareness, which you possess. Fear anticipates the typical reaction the next time it manifests. Take a step back, keep quiet, and be cautious. However, you bend forward instead, not flawlessly, not with assurance, but in a different way. And that difference only needs to be genuine. It doesn't have to be significant. When you would normally remain silent, you talk. When you often avoid, you give it a shot. When you typically give up, you keep going. It may appear attached. However, it's disruption within the system that used to define you, because this version of you was not taken into consideration by the plan, which was based on your previous behavior. The version that selects rather than responds, the version that inquires rather than complies. The unexpected move is that. This is the portion that most people overlook. Being the unexpected move doesn't mean you instantly change into someone else. It entails taking a step that your former self would not do. That's all. One thing that deviates from the pattern, because consistency is essential to patterns. They require you to make the same decisions repeatedly. The pattern becomes weaker the instant you break that, even just once. It also loses its ability to dominate you once it weakens. It will not, however, give up easy. Your brain will attempt to pull you back. This isn't you. You're forcing it. Go back to what's comfortable. Comfort will be alluring since it's comfy, needs less work, and maintains predictability. However, the very thing that kept you stuck was predictability. You now have an option. Maintain the disturbance or go back to the pattern. Additionally, disturbance is uncomfortable. At first it seems strange, as if you're entering a position you haven't yet fully earned. However, that emotion is not a reason to give up. That's evidence that will be because nothing would have changed if it felt usual. So you continue, one unforeseen step at a time, refusing to return to automatic living without attempting to prove anything to anyone. Even though it doesn't feel like it, you begin to notice things, opportunities you previously overlooked, abilities you never used, and times when you truly have control. And gradually, the identity you've been carrying starts to change, through deeds rather than words. Because you are no longer the one who hesitates all the time. It's you who takes action in spite of hesitation. You are no longer the risk-averse individual. You are the one who voluntarily and cautiously enters it. Your prior actions no longer define who you are. It's being rewritten in real time by you. And clears throat that alters how everything reacts to you. Things that used to seem overwhelming become manageable. Once impossible decisions are now alternatives. As you are no longer predictable, you're flexible. And flexibility is power, not overt or noisy power, but the type that changes the course of events, the kind that creates pathways where walls once stood, all because you no longer move in the same manner. Therefore, the next time you experience that familiar pull, the need to back off, doubt, or stay inside the lines, pause, acknowledge it, and ask yourself, what would the old deficient do? something tiny, something awkward, something genuine. Because all you need is a different approach, not a flawless strategy. And you are that move, the one that deviates from the script, the one that breaks the pattern. It's the version you've been avoiding, not the one you've been repeating. The one who acts without waiting for approval. The one who deviates from expectations. The one who initiates change rather than responding to it. That version of you was not what they had anticipated. That version only appears when you choose to cease being predictable. Therefore, they couldn't. And everything changes the instant you do. Permanently, but not flawlessly, nor all at once. Because you are unable to return to being a part of the plan once you become the unexpected move. You are currently experiencing a narrative in your mind. You didn't write it all at once. You weren't given it in a tidy little book. Over time, it quietly and steadily established itself. You added a line for each error you made. You added a chapter each time someone questioned you. Every instance in which you felt insignificant, disregarded, or defeated came together to form a story that seems to last forever. You stop questioning the risky aspect. You say it again. I simply lack confidence. I make mistakes all the time. Individuals such as myself do not achieve success. You say it so frequently that it begins to seem true. Let's be clear, though it untrue. It's an interpretation. An emotional, fearful, and repetitive account of what happened. This is when things start to get interesting. Whether the narrative is true or not doesn't matter to your thinking. It is just concerned with consistency. Your mind will therefore look for proof if you've been telling yourself that you're not enough for years. It will draw attention to your shortcomings, disregard your advancements, and turn ordinary occurrences into evidence that you're trapped. It is attempting to adhere to the narrative you have been feeding it, not because it despises you. That's the power of a narrative. What you see, believe, anticipate, and ultimately become are all shaped by it, because you live your tale rather than only thinking about it. You pause if your story indicates that you are incapable. You hold back if it indicates you're rejected all the time. If it predicts your failure, you don't even make an effort to disprove it. In an instant, the narrative continues to validate itself. A loop is a closed system in which nothing is questioned and so nothing changes. This is the section that most people steer clear of, though. You are not confined to that narrative, you're simply accustomed to it. There's a distinction. There is no way out when one is trapped. You stop searching for something when you become accustomed to it. And the instant you recognize that, you get authority, something that most people never utilize. You have the power to change the story, not by pushing artificial optimism or acting as though your history didn't exist, but rather by reinterpreting it. That failure you keep repeating could indicate that I'm not good enough or that I've learned something that most people don't. That rejection could indicate that I'll never be selected or that I didn't belong there. The tale, the events, and the conclusion are all different. This is the catch, though. Rewriting your story is uncomfortable because the old tale is familiar, even if it hurts. It is foreseeable. You get an odd feeling of control from it. You already know how it concludes. However, a new tale is doubtful. It compels you to take a risk that you haven't yet proven. Additionally, your mind dislikes uncertainty. It'll fight back. You're lying to you to impute. This isn't you. Because you're moving outside of the identity you've been repeating for so long. It will feel real for a brief while. However, that discomfort does not indicate that you are incorrect. That indicates that you are evolving. Rewriting a story requires you to become someone you're not comfortable with before it feels normal. It entails stopping yourself in the middle of an old thought. I never succeed. I'm still here, but no, that didn't work. I lack confidence. No, I'm gradually coming to trust myself. You are debating with your own thoughts, which is why it initially feels forced. You're up against years of repetition, years of conviction, and years of evidence that your mind has gathered to support your current position. Don't expect it to be simple, but be aware of this. You weaken the old story each time you interrupt it. You make room for a new interpretation each time you select a different one. And gradually something changes. You begin to notice things that you had previously overlooked. instances in which you managed a situation more skillfully than before. Sometimes you didn't give up right away, circumstances under which you persevered through difficult times. Little things, but they are significant because they defy the conventional wisdom, and that's when the narrative begins to fall apart, enough to allow something new to pass through, but not everything at once. A different you. One that is characterized by current decisions rather than past errors. One that refuses to remain stagnant but doesn't pretend to be flawless. The new story gets stronger the longer you live there, until you start thinking differently one day, naturally, without any effort. I'm capable of handling this. I've changed since then. At that point, you recognize that the narrative has evolved, not because the past vanished, but rather because your future is no longer determined by it. It was rewritten by you, line by line, idea by idea, decision by decision. Additionally, you are no longer living according to a script that you inherited. You're residing in one that you made. Therefore, the next time your mind tries to drag you back into the same old story, stop, pay attention, and then pose a straightforward inquiry to yourself. Do I want to live this story? You already know what to do if the response is negative. Continue. When I've had a sort of variety